Thanks for joining us this morning as we review the movie The Tomorrow War, otherwise known as
If I get recruited to the future, do I get back pay?
Chris Pratt plays Dan Forrester, a high school teacher. He's also a military veteran. He's thrust into a global conflict with time travelers from the future that arrive seeking humanity's help against deadly aliens. The future recruiters draft present-day soldiers to fight in a war that threatens to annihilate the human race. As Forrester and a team of frumpy, undertrained, ill-informed, everyday people confront the relentless extraterrestrials, Forrester leads his handful of defenders as they carry a key to defeating the aliens. The film explores the themes of sacrifice, courage, family bonds, forgiveness, and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of an extraterrestrial threat. So I wanted to talk real briefly to make sure you guys understand there are some really good Christian themes here. There's strong family values, courage, and sacrifice. In fact, that really is a theme to the movie. And what goes on here is that there's these, like in this scene right here with the aliens coming, there's some pretty intense scene. The sacrifice of the family, what he must do for his family and go out and do this. He gives up, thrust into this situation. They don't have any training at all. This is a real emergency situation. They're throwing 40, 50-year-olds at these guys, basically cannon fodder, to try to save the world against these aliens. It's mad dash, all hands. Usually I would say I don't like to see women in combat. It's mostly guys. I guess I'm a bit of a sexist and misogynist when it comes to that. Should be guys on the front line. But you know what? When they're all wiped out, somebody's got to save the children. So women have to take up arms too. And this is one of those situations where everybody has to do it. So what would you say, rating from 1 to 10 on what you thought of this movie?
I put it at 7. There are some issues, but there are also some really good values. There's no sexual. I didn't find any sexual content in it. There's no sex scenes. There's nothing like that. So that's very enjoyable. There's also no nudity in it. In regards to that, there's a lot of violence.
The aliens were nude.
I can't. Like there's.
I don't think that's a spoiler.
Yeah, but there's a lot of violence, a lot of intense scenes.
Yeah. So
keep that aware. There's some gore involved in this, but that's about it. Yeah,
and I would say overall, I would rate it 7, pushing 8, just because I think it's an enjoyable film. There's some issue. It didn't rate too high. Of course, with the critics, they wouldn't rate it high. But even like Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score was a little bit lower than I would have expected. But I thought it was just enjoyable. It's just one of those movies you can just sit back and enjoy it. Intense fight scenes and everything, but it was still. I would still say it was still up there. You've got these guys coming in. The world has been on the brink. We're on the brink of extinction. There's a lot of good special effects that were in here. I didn't see any CGI problem or anything like that. So if this movie is up your alley, I would suggest it.
You like sci-fi, alien sort of fighty.
You were saying it's a bit of a sleeper.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't seem like, at least I didn't hear very much about it until just recently. I just stumbled across it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is a good one to do a review on. This is sci-fi. This is an interesting concept.
Yeah. Apparently, my wife had seen it before. I thought, hey, let's check it out. And she said, I've seen this one. I was all excited. I would sit down and watch it with her. But she said it was good, and she enjoyed it as well. I would say it's a cross between the movies Alien and The Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, I'd say it's similar.
I would say there's definitely elements of both of those that are in that. And if you liked either of those movies, this would be, I would say it's a copy. I would say it is not.
It's not a copy.
Not a copy.
It presents it in a different way, in a different light.
Yeah.
With a very interesting alien design.
Okay, so before we get into the spoiler section, I wanted to go over the cast and crew that were on here. Here we have, okay, so the poster for The Edge of Tomorrow, and I mentioned, I'm sorry, the poster for the Tomorrow War, and here is The Edge of Tomorrow. This is the other one. We did a review on this not too long ago, and like I say, there's a lot of comparables between the two. So the cast, we have, I don't have Chris Pratt. He's got to be there somewhere. So Yvonne Strahovski plays Marie Forrester. I'm not going to say who she is because there's a little bit of a spoiler with that. But you do have Chris Pratt in there, of course. I think mostly everybody knows him. This guy shows up as Chris's father, J.K. Simmons. You may recognize him in others without the beard, but his voice is iconic. And yes, we have State Farm, and JJ from Spider-Man is in there. He played both of those roles, so you see him. And then we have a wide cast of other characters. Just pointing out Sam Richardson as Charlie, and he's the buddy who needs a little bit of help. Let's just put it that way. So if you haven't seen this movie, we're going to get into a spoiler section. So I suggest that you shut this video off, go watch the movie, come back. I would say it definitely is worth a watch. If you're in for a sci-fi thriller, this would be right up your alley.
If you don't mind the spoilers and want to watch anyway, then
yes, you can.
Just keep watching.
You're gonna hang out. We're not gonna kick you out the door. So we're gonna say some other things that are probably gonna come over with this. So what would you say would be the pros for this movie, spoiler wise? And then we'll get into. I don't want to nitpick too much, but
I thought the family dynamic was really well done. I thought the future reveal with him. Because he comes from a broken family where his father left the family.
Yes.
And showing that that's something that he has to deal with himself, because in the original timeline, he leaves the family as well.
And he follows in his father's footsteps.
Yep.
And he really just hates his father for.
Yeah, he hates his father.
So he does what his father did.
Yep. The sins of the father visit the son.
Yeah.
And it was pretty. And that's pretty true. We see that quite often in broken families create broken families.
Yeah.
Even if they don't intend to go down that route, it's something they've got to be constantly aware of. And luckily, whenever he came back, that's something he definitely wanted to make sure did not repeat itself. I thought it was really well done as far as the concepts with the aliens, showing them what their purpose was, why they were there.
Okay, so that was interesting. So it wasn't straight up saying, basically just had these aliens that are going everywhere, and by how fast they spread, which I don't think it'd be possible spreading that fast. But let's say they spread that fast, their food source was basically they're carnivores. Everything they were, you have clips of them going after horses, and basically they're eating people. Eventually, they'd wipe out their food supply.
Oh, that's the point of it.
And they start right.
So their point is this is terraforming in a way. It's to wipe out the indigenous population in order to eventually make it suitable for the actual owners of these mad dogs to come in and
we're kind of making an assumption there. It does seem like that would be it. They don't come straight out and say that though, right? Because you have this crashed alien spacecraft, you have the pilots that are not like these White Claws, they're different.
Yes,
right. And then they're there.
Well, they actually do mention that at one point.
Do they?
Hmm?
Okay, well then I totally missed
not very in depth, but it's like, yeah, this must be the reason why. And it's like, it's a little bit of a jump in logic, but okay, we'll go with it. But
so I got a couple of questions here. Are the aliens humanoid? The answer is no.
Well, the owners are kind of humanoid.
Yeah, you got a kind of glimpse of. Okay, so So this is where it crosses with Aliens, so to speak. If you remember in the original Aliens movie, they had crash landed, and it looked like the alien ship was there. It was, I don't know if it was crash landed or not. They came across this alien ship. They waken the aliens. There's these pods that come out, and the things come after them. And they find out later, I think in some of the later series, they have the engineers that were there.
Engineers, it gets weird.
Okay.
It's really confusing.
So it appears that there was something like this. You have the alien spaceship locked in ice in the Antarctic, and they go into the alien spaceship. They find the pilots asleep. Now, this doesn't happen until way late in the movie that they discover this.
Well, the pilots aren't asleep, they're dead.
I'm sorry, not asleep, they're dead. And then they go in, there's aliens, and it looks like they're cargo.
Yep, they're cargo. They're there
suspended animation
to purge whatever creatures are currently there and go ahead and populate it with their own. So yeah, so it makes sense that they are such good killing machines because they're genetically modified to be killing machines, and that's their entire purpose, is to wipe out everything.
Okay.
So it is an interesting concept, and I enjoyed it all in all, but there's still some like things that were dumb.
We'll get to the bad things here in a bit. How many timelines in this movie? And then we have another question in the original timeline. So I'm gonna answer Isgul's question first. I believe they're just two, and this is another.
It looks like a branching timeline. That's what they're going.
That's one thing that I was going to ask too with this. So he does come across his daughter, and there's this really emotional events that are going there, and she's not afraid to tell him his future. And it's like, no, that's a big no for time traveler.
Well, she is afraid to tell him this.
She does, but she at first
pull it out of her.
But it's not so much because of splitting off timelines or temporal loop or causality problem or anything like that. It's more like, I don't want to tell you there because of my own emotions, or it might make you change your events. But there's no concern about that. Obviously, we are in spoiler section, so I can say this. Obviously, when they go back and they change things, those events on that other future they had would have changed. Then the question is, now you got the causality loop. If they end up saving the future by destroying the aliens earlier, they would never have gone back to try to recruit him, right?
Yeah. So no, you don't have a overriding sort of wipeout, because then you would have the grandfather effect. In fact, this would be a perfect example of a grandfather effect, because there'd be no point in sending people back if the aliens then come and kill everyone, which is what you do. So there's definitely branching timelines.
I would say so, but then you still have the problem with crossover between the two timelines.
Well, no, if you go back and they explain it, you have these two timelines that are now linked and they're moving in sequence with one another.
Right.
And you have basically a portal that's just accessing both.
That's different from just going back in time then, because you're branching, you're jumping between the alternate timelines.
Yeah, that's the question, because, well, that's the main premise of it. Like they said, whenever they were sending people into the future, they're like, well, why is it locked? Why don't you go earlier in time? And it's like, we still have no clue how this stuff works. We kind of just stumbled on this. We would still be testing rats if it wasn't for the fact that we're going to die.
Yeah, I think that's maybe some of the difficulties of the movie is you sit back and you think about all the other possibilities with this. There are some things that they did to explain how temporal mechanics work, how the whole time machine works and everything like that. But that they didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. And I think it was actually a good thing, because it would have detracted. Now my own curiosity, I was like, how did this work? How do you really? Are we talking about a singularity here, or what is the main thrust of this? It wasn't any of that.
Hand waving when it came to that.
But in the storytelling part, that was good, because if you would have broke pacing, you would have detracted from the focus of the story.
That's not the main point of it.
Yeah. Right. And you're also seeing it from the point of view of these people that have been recruited, brought in, and they don't have much of a choice in what they can do. It's just like, boom, they're there.
It's a draft.
I'm going to see if I have the right clip here for this. No, not that one. Yes, this one here, where he's brought in. They're not even telling what's going on. It says, "What is this, driving test?" And they slam this device on his hand that
and they're not told what is going to happen either, or what the aliens look like.
No,
nothing.
No, because at one point in the movie they say, "Well," it says, "What do these things even look like if we told you wouldn't go?" So ill prepared. These guys are just throwing them like cannon fodder.
Yeah, you get like, and I understand because you're time locked, which makes sense.
Time lock being what?
Being that 30 years in the future, 30 years in the past, every day that passes in the past passes in the future,
right?
As well.
So it's like kind of like tethered. You have this. You have a. Right, like you said, it's locked 30 years. So if I wait a day here, it's a day future that passes. So I can't. That's the other thing too, is say, well, if you're going you're being recruited in the future, you have time to train your people, don't you? No, if you're lockstep like that, it's a day for day, you don't have time. So yeah, there was one other comment here I wanted to say. In the original timeline, you had asked this, and I'm not sure.
In the original timeline, I mentioned about Chris Pratt's character, Dan, leaving the family in the original timeline. So he goes to the future, he meets his daughter. His daughter explains to him what happened to him in the original timeline. So you have the original branch, you can think of it like that, the original branch itself. And then you have this that leads eventually to human extinction on Earth. And then you have the offshoot from that, which is the one that humanity survives in.
Right.
And the aliens aren't doing this necessarily. The intelligent owner aliens aren't doing this because they're all dead.
Right.
They have no clue this.
And we have no idea how long they've been encased in ice there.
No.
So here's a follow-up to that. Time travel never makes sense. Now, I don't know about this. I think there is the whole question of causality and everything like that.
You did a breakdown of different ways.
Time travel is a key event in my science fiction novel series. So, and you don't really see, they can only jump forward in this one. I'm going to go ahead and little plug here. You can only jump forward. You can't jump back. Now, there was a time when you could jump forward and that technology has been lost. What's that?
Time you could jump back.
The time you can jump back. I'm sorry.
That makes sense.
At time there was a device that was around that allows you to jump back, and because of that, there's all sorts of problems that have been created for it, and you see that more in the novels. But the thing with the time travel is we're all time travelers, right? We're all going forward in time. We just can't go back. So when we talk about time travel, usually we're talking about reverse time travel, or maybe going forward at a faster rate. And we can do that now. We can travel faster in time, and this has to do with relativistic speeds. But I'm not going to get into that too much right now. I mean, we can look at that. We did have a video where we did talk about the different temporal timelines in science fiction, and three major different timelines that were there. And I'll put a link for that either in description or in one of the cards that appears. So then
we do. So another pro. What's a?
Well, I want to just a minute. I want to go over a couple of. Here we go. He said nothing good comes from the Antarctic.
Well, it was actually in Russia, but yes, it was.
You're right. That was in Russia. They actually filmed it in Iceland. But yeah, it was supposed to be somewhere in Russia.
Iceland.
No, you know what? No, because they made their way to Russia.
Oh, okay.
I think it was originally, maybe it was, I don't know. So anyway, it was very cold, a lot of ice, wherever it was there. And then we have another one. Terminator rules one direction only.
Terminator rules. I'm not sure if this would be a Terminator. I think that was overriding, but it could have been. No, I think it was branching.
I think he's talking about with my series. So okay, another pro that would have been in there. We got family was good.
Redemption was very good.
Redemption, a lot of redemption, heavy on that. Now we see that a lot of movies. character redemption, family relationship redemption, stuff like that. But it was very key in this, in more than just one way. You have the daughter, and also the relationship with his father being restored. Those are two, and daughter and mother too, because
and they handled it nicely. I think both of them, they handled it organically.
Yes,
it wasn't something that was forced in there, and so all of a sudden there's a massive character change. It's like, no, this is a natural way of this developing between these two characters.
I would agree. So you had those that are going on, the courage and sacrifice. And I keep pointing to this. We are particularly at a time where, in history right now, where courage is required. And it's not so much the courage for battle, fortunately, although there is, we do have war. It's more the courage to stand up and be able to lose your reputation, be able to lose any kind of career that you have. I mean, are you, and speaking directly to Christians now, are you willing to give up your career, everything for Christ? I mean, family relationships, even if you have to go the opposite direction. How much are we willing to do that? And I think we have gotten a culture that just wants to protect and hold back and look at with what happened with COVID and everything. So we need to have that level of courage. This film was made, and speaking of COVID, this is a little bit of trivia. This film was made by Paramount Pictures for a theatrical release, and it never came out in the theater.
No.
But because of the COVID pandemic response, Paramount sold the film to Amazon for $200 million. And Amazon, that's how Amazon has it right now. Were there any other pros to this movie? The special effects was good.
Special effects were good. Again, the type of content that we see in it, as far as what is you need to be aware of when choosing who can watch and who can't watch. Again, it's just violence. Again, my major thing is sexual stuff, because that seems to be the most cancerous in a lot of ways. And there's none of this. There's not really any hint of it at all. So that was it's really refreshing, definitely, when they normally try to
the only negatives that I would have said in this movie at all would have been related to any questions when you sit down and you think about how time travel would have helped people and they could have done things better. I don't understand a couple of things. It's like he goes back with the formula against this critter, but he holds onto this vial. That means they have to reverse engineer what's in the vial. Why didn't you just give the formula that's there?
So, if we're going into cons, I have some cons.
Okay, we're going into cons.
Okay, so you have the concept here that these people from the future are coming back. They're recruiting you guys to go into the future and fight. There's some issues with that. Quite a bit of issues.
What's that?
So you have 30 years until these aliens start attacking. Now, eventually they do this, which is what I would have done to begin with, is find the aliens to begin with, or at least prepare for the aliens to begin with. One of the major issues with this video, and I think that with this movie, and they sort of touch on it, is these people are being sent to the future. There's a 30% survival rate of people that go into the future. So, I mean, there's like 70% chance you die. Right. And you're only there for a week.
Yeah.
So it is rough. But if the whole point is to get ready for this war, send people there, and you're sending them very ill-prepared, very not ready, send back all your gosh darn science, let us chew on it for 30 years, and we are set.
That's probably the biggest hole that is there. We are set.
And
information is the biggest thing they had to send back.
Yes, information is the biggest thing, and they end up doing that at the end. They end up sending it back, but I would have had labs dedicated here. Now, it was like 12 months, so it was a year before Chris Pratt gets sent to the future. So that year time frame, I would have had multiple labs doing it. Now, one of the issues that this comes up, I don't know if they really touched on too much in this. war fatigue, which there was some war fatigue in this, just having so many people sent to the future and not come back. At the same time, okay, so you're sending people to the future. Are you sure this is actually happening? On top of that, what's the motivation for people to go into the future? Oh, save your children. We are your children. If you're telling me 90% of the people are already dead by the time that I'd be going to save the future, my kids are probably dead.
Yeah, I think that if you knew the end of the world was coming and the only way for you to save it was for most of you people to die, I think you'd have a lot of people just wanting to party. You wouldn't have...
Yeah, you wouldn't have this...
You would have people that would be willing to go. You would have people that would be willing to go to do this. But you'd have a lot of deserters. Now, granted, when they put that thing on his arm, they said, if you go into the... If you desert and you don't show up for,
your family will be taken instead.
Yeah, basically. Your family's going to be taken instead.
I'm holding your family hostage.
If you hate your family, then
go. No, a much better motivation for this would be, hey, we're going to change the future.
Mm-hmm.
In the future, your family's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Your family's been murdered. We are going to stop it. We're going to work together to prepare for this coming future with these aliens coming.
Yeah.
And this is how you are going to save your children.
Yeah, that'd be a lot. I think
that's a lot better motivation than, well, your children might be dead, so we're going to stop you from sharing time with your family to go fight this war that might not even impact your family anyway, because your family might be already dead.
Yeah, yeah, and you're probably going to lose your life. Yeah, that's that
motivation. I mean, if you have a father who says, hey, you need to defend your family, this is to protect your family, you need to go do this. Okay, that's a strong motivation to go do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of, now you'd still have detractors saying, well, this is just, it's all some sort of conspiracy or something like that. And it would be a different way of handling the show, a different way of handling the movie. And I think the way they handle it, it's okay, all in all. That's how I would handle it.
Okay.
If that was the concept, would be, hey, and I mean, they prove that they could send people into the future, show them this, and then pull them right back.
Yeah, and they're saying, well, we're not going to show you the aliens because if we showed you the aliens, it'd be too scared. There are people that come back. Hello. I think the word would get out about what these things were like.
Well, and it makes a strong motivation in that point to prepare for this eventual attack. Now, again, the whole twist of the aliens being there the entire time, the future people didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So they were thinking they landed sometime, but they eventually figure out they must have been here all along,
right?
Which was interesting.
That's kind of creepy because you have these things that can destroy you. They've been locked in ice for, they have no idea, centuries, millennia, and have no idea that they've been sitting there the whole human race, all our history. And they've been there. But the other thing, too, about them going back in time, they're willing to sacrifice. You got 30, 40, 50-year-olds willing to go into the future and sacrifice their lives for their children who would have been about their age when they go into the future. This is during a time of COVID. And we were willing to lock down the entire world and to sacrifice our children's lives, their livelihoods, for the sake of extending the life of the average age of a person dying of COVID in Ohio during the pandemic was 80. The average lifespan of a person in Ohio was 80. So what are we doing here? We're trying to those who are older are sacrificing their children so they can save themselves. So this is the opposite. You have the older people sacrificing themselves for the young, the way it should be. Those of us who have had a longer life should be willing to lay down our lives for the younger generations. So, this is ideal. We should see it this way. Anything else that you want to add before?
No, I think that was a major con on it. And again, if by nitpicking the story, the only thing I have as a con for a movie is that I would have handled it slightly differently.
Yeah.
That is actually a pretty good review, all in all, for the movie, because there's not a lot. I mean, I was very critical on Aquaman when we did Aquaman, and there's
Yeah.
a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot more
But-
for Aquaman, a lot of more holes.
Yeah, I'd say this is much more enjoyable than Aquaman was.
We have I want to put this one final comment. I just realized I have seen the movie. Well, that's actually kind of a bad
That's a
comment
bad
because
comment
if you
because-
no, I mean I'm glad you put the comment up, but I mean it's bad in rating for the movie because if the movie was that forgettable, then it's like you
Oh,
could
crap.
you finally get to the end of the movie and say, wait a minute, I think I've seen this before. I just don't really remember it very much. So we have coming up this Thursday in a couple of days, we're going to be doing another review, part 2 on Was the Bible Corrupted? This is Lost and Confused. We're going to be talking the details of and the statistics about the manuscripts, about the transmission. We're going to be working our way backwards here, and you'll see during the review what I mean about working our way backwards. How do we know that this material that we have, the written word in the Bible and everything like that this was actually what was back then, what was written back then? And we'll look at the manuscripts, where they are, how many there are, compare that to other sources of antiquity, and get a real scientific view of this and say, is this something that's questionable? Is this something that say you really don't know? There's not a whole lot we can put our faith on for this, or is there some really solid evidence to say, no, this looks good? And we want to look at it with a real critical eye. So we're going to take a look at that coming on Thursday. And then next week, we're going to do another review on science fiction. Again, we're looking at backing this off instead of 5 days a week, doing this 2 days a week and seeing how this works out, mainly because of work schedule and stuff like that for us. So if you've enjoyed this material, please like and subscribe. And until next time, hope you have a great day, and we'll see you then.